do it in Europe.
It is.
Anyway, it was fun hanging out with you. We should do it again sometime.
Yeah, we should.
Pick
I'm a
another
little sore, though.
Right.
You're sore.
I am.
That's great.
It's hard.
This is what I got in my ear. Moving on. This is that special time of the NFL season when there's no pressure or anything, but win the game or pack your bags, buddy. Therein lies the situation for the Cowboys and the Seahawks. America's Game of the Week. The winner keeps playoff hopes alive. The loser starts making summer camp plans up in the Berkshires. Both teams at 8-6, but only one team gets Ezekiel Elliott back. Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott believes in this team. Take a listen.
Regardless if the things fall our way or not, I know how dangerous this team can be and the direction we're heading in and the momentum we're picking up as we're going. So, I mean, we're going to worry about what we can control, and that's just winning out. And it's one game at a time, and right now it's going to be the Seattle team. So that's all we're focusing on, and we'll cross our fingers with the rest of the stuff.
Coach Dak Prescott says he knows how dangerous this team can be, especially because he's getting Ezekiel Elliott back. What type of immediate impact does a guy who's been out for the last 6 weeks have on this team against this Seattle defense?
Well, we're going to learn how good the training facilities are in Cabo San Lucas. I think that's because I've been looking for a new site, so Cabo might be the place to go, and I want to see how that goes. Yeah, they're going to put Zeke in early. They're going to see how well it goes, and then they're going to ride him as much as they can. Before he was suspended, I think the other backs had a total of 30 carries, and so when they get him back and he looks like he's going, he's going to get the ball a tremendous amount. And I think right now it's everybody's counting Seattle out of this. I feel opposite, completely opposite, and for the same reason as when they played Philadelphia 3 weeks ago. They had injuries. Philly was on an 8-game winning streak. Everybody said it was over for Seattle, and Seattle wins that game. I think this is the same situation where people are looking past Seattle based off of what happened last week, and there's a lot of guys there with a lot of pride, and Pete Carroll isn't going to sit stationary and not do anything about fixing that defense. He did a lot of creative things before they were sort of the dominant stationary defense that we've seen for a while.
One thing I'm going to watch, Jenna, early in the game with Zeke is because the excitement and because the adrenaline, does he overexert himself early in the game? And when you're playing in a game like this, the bigger the game, and sometimes when you have outside emotions get involved, getting from your first win to your second win is the hardest part. So for me, I always tell guys, man, go out there and get yourself exhausted as soon as possible. Run around, because your second win. Don't try to fight it. Don't warm up real slow, trying to act like you're real cool, because you're going to get tired. Because there's nothing like game day conditioning. I don't care how many sprints you run. I don't care what kind of trainer you have. I don't care what you're eating. There's nothing like playing in an NFL game. So for me, early, I want to get Zeke a lot of carries. Get him early. Get him used to the contact. And then around midway in the first half, I'll probably bring in Alfred Morris and give him a little bit of a blow. Let him get a feel for the game. Let everything calm down. And at the end of that first quarter, second quarter, I'm getting ready to ride him, man, as hard as I can ride him for these next 2 games. So initially, getting from that first win to that second win, it's very difficult. And the guy was suspended, so he's going to have more emotion going into this game. But, Coach, I agree with you as far as Pete Carroll. I told him, Nick, what is this for Seattle? This is
what are you?
Custer's last stand.
Custer's last. Sorry, I forgot
this is
you were going back to that.
So is that 2 sentences?
Yeah.
Sorry, my bad.
So this is the game that I believe that they will try to defend everything that they've established as far as the Pete Carroll, his era, and the program, even though they don't have some of those household names that we're used to.
Here's the question for the Cowboys, and it's about the Seahawks. Are the Seahawks a good team or a bad team? And the reason that might sound simple, but here's why. There's no team in the league this year that has had a bigger discrepancy in performance against good versus bad than the Dallas Cowboys. Against good teams, against teams that are 500 or better, they're 1-5, being beaten on average by 11 points per game. Against teams below 500, they're 7-1, winning those games on average by 11 points per game. No team in the league has a bigger discrepancy between those two factors. Right now, I think Seattle's closer to the bad than the good. You feel differently. If you're right, then Dallas absolutely is in a set up for a dogfight. I thought Seattle was so thoroughly dominated last week that if they had any fight left in them, even if they were even if they would have lost last week, but they lose a tough game. They were down 30 points at halftime in their biggest game of the year, and it was because the defense could not get, I mean, forget the Rams having to deal with third down. They couldn't get them to third down. Like it was, and that was disconcerting to me. And I know we've seen guys snipe at each other during games with Seattle. And I know we've seen guys snipe about coaches' decisions after games. What we hadn't seen previously that I remember is two guys both on defense talking bad at each other after the game during the week, like we saw with Earl Thomas and Bobby Wagner. We've seen guys talk bad about the offense. We've got to carry the team. We've seen guys question the coaches. But having Earl Thomas and Bobby Wagner, your two best remaining defensive players when healthy, going at each other, that was a bad sign to me.
Yeah, I don't see that as being such a big outlier in Seattle. There's always been fighting in Seattle, and there's always been an
family
element
business.
But when they go out into the world, they bond together and they defend each other, and I think that's what you're going to get here. And as bad as last week looked, it was last week. And this is a group that has a lot of pride, has won a lot of games, and has Russell Wilson. And Russell Wilson at any point can take over a game, can dominate a game. And really, the question is, what's Dallas? Where does Dallas fall in all this? And oftentimes when they get in these big moments, it's not what you hope they're going to be.
Coach, I have a question for you. Because when I was in games like this, I had a guy named Tom Moore, a pretty good coach.
I like Tom.
Coached this league a long time. Brian Billick. If I was going to this game, before this game, they would come to me. If we were getting a player back like Ezekiel, that being Randy Moss or Robert Smith, he would tell me how he was going to use them to get me the football. Now, isn't there a certain amount of responsibility on Scott Linehan and Jason Garrett to come up with some type of design? We know that everyone knows Zeke's going to come back. What about a little play-action pass early or on first downs? Because everyone thinks Zeke's going to get it. Try to get a little more creative so that the wideouts might be able to get some separations. Every once in a while, I used to have, hey, Coach, I know I'm good, but can you call a play to get me open? I just don't see that with Dallas, and I guess my expectation is going this game to not see it again. But isn't there a certain amount of responsibility on them to be a little more creative?
Yeah, and look, we don't know the inner workings of the team, and sometimes as creative as you want to be as a coach, you're limited by the lowest common denominator and how effectively that player can learn. So as much as you may want to change things week to week, which New England does all the time, but they're built that way and their players are used to that, some teams need to do what they do because it's the only thing that allows their players to play faster.
Two things to keep in mind. One, Coach thinks Seattle could win this game. And two, we're going water skiing later this afternoon. So just wait until...
Check out my Instagram. It'll be all over it.
If not his, then definitely mine.
Merry Christmas,
Coach.
Thank
you so much.
It's going to take a little time for your Spanx to dry. So we can get them.
There's a lot of Spanx.
It's going to be so great. I'll send you a video.
Thanks.
Coming up, which Super Bowl contenders should be